One of the hardest truths about growing older is this: money stress doesn't always retire when we do. For many people, the dream was to reach our later years with peace, dignity, and maybe a little cushion for our families. But for too many, instead of peace, there's a phone ringing at dinner time. A stranger on the other end says you owe money. They talk fast, they sound official, and before you know it, you're staring at the wall, wondering if you could actually lose your home, your social security, or the little savings you worked so hard to put aside. I've spoken with so many men and women in their 60s, 70s, even 80s, who tell me the same thing. I thought debt would be behind me by now. Instead, it feels like I'm fighting battles from decades ago. The fear is real. But here's the truth I want you to hold on to tonight. Not all debt is what it seems. Some of those bills that feel like a chain around your ankle may not even be yours to carry. Some of them have already expired. Others were never legally yours in the first place. And a few are simply not worth the paper they're printed on. The sad part is, collectors know that most seniors don't realize their rights. They count on fear, confusion, and guilt to keep the money flowing. But once you understand what's real and what isn't, the picture changes. You realize you're not trapped. You realize that debt doesn't define your worth, and you start to breathe easier again. So today, I want to share 6 kinds of debt that seniors often think they have to pay, but may not. Knowing these can save you money, but more importantly, it can restore something far more valuable: your confidence and your peace of mind. Before we dive in, if you find comfort in honest conversations like this, hit subscribe. We share stories that don't just pass time, they help make sense of it. Let's start with one of the most common traps: old credit card balances. Maybe you had a Visa or MasterCard 15 years ago. Life got hard, medical bills, a spouse's illness, or the interest just piled up. You couldn't pay, and the account went quiet. Years later, you get a call. You owe thousands. Pay up or we'll sue. Here's what they don't tell you. Every state has a time limit, a statute of limitations on how long a creditor can legally take you to court over a debt. Sometimes it's 3 years, sometimes 6, sometimes a little longer. But once that clock runs out, the debt becomes time-barred. Collectors can yell, they can send letters, but they cannot legally win a judgment in court. Now, here's the tricky part. If you say the wrong words or send them even $5, you might restart the clock. Collectors know this, and they're trained to get you to admit just enough to give them power again. So what do? Don't admit anything over the phone. Ask for everything in writing. Check the age of the debt against your state's rules. If it's expired, you can say calmly, "This debt is past the statute of limitations. Do not contact me again." And that's the end of it. For many seniors, medical bills are the heaviest weight. You go in for surgery or tests, and the bills start rolling in like waves. Thousands of dollars, even with Medicare or insurance. And then the calls begin. But here's something few people know. When hospitals believe they can't collect, they often write off that debt as a business loss and sell it to collectors for pennies on the dollar. That means the collector may not even have the right paperwork to prove you owe what they're demanding. Non-profit hospitals are also required by law to offer financial assistance or charity care, but they rarely tell you this up front. You could qualify for reduced or forgiven bills and never know it. So, if someone calls about a medical bill, don't panic. Instead, ask them to prove in writing that you owe it. Find out how old the debt is. Check whether the hospital already wrote it off. Collectors prey on fear, but often their claims don't stand on solid ground. Don't hand over your limited retirement income until you're sure the debt is real, valid, and enforceable. This one breaks my heart because I've seen it too many times. A spouse passes away, and just weeks later, the survivor gets a call. Your husband had a credit card balance. You need to pay it. Grief already feels unbearable. And then someone piles guilt on top of it, saying things like, "Don't you want to honor his memory?" Let me be clear. If the debt was only in your spouse's name, you are not personally responsible. The creditor may file a claim against your spouse's estate, whatever property or savings he left behind. But they cannot force you to pay from your social security, your pension, or your personal savings, unless you were a co-signer. If you get one of these calls, say, "This debt is not mine. Please deal with the estate." Keep records of every call. If they continue harassing you, report them to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. You have already paid enough in loss. Don't let anyone bully you into paying debts that are not legally yours. It surprises many people, but more and more seniors are still carrying student loans, either their own or Parent Plus loans they took out for their children. And paying them on a fixed income can feel impossible. Here's the hidden truth. Federal student loans can be discharged if the borrower becomes permanently disabled. And if the student passes away, Parent Plus loans can be discharged as well. Most importantly, if you die, your family is not responsible for paying those federal loans. They end with you. The catch is, it's not automatic. You have to apply through a program called Total and Permanent Disability, TPD, discharge. Some people qualify by showing Social Security disability status, others with a doctor's certification or through the VA. So if you're struggling under federal student loans, ask about the TPD discharge program. The paperwork can feel daunting, but once approved, the debt is gone, and with it, a huge burden. Many older adults faced with crushing bills have filed for bankruptcy at some point. It's a painful decision, but also a way to start fresh. Here's what you need to know. If a debt was included in your bankruptcy and officially discharged, it is gone. You no longer owe it. Collectors are not allowed to come back years later and demand a payment. Yet I've met seniors who kept paying out of fear because someone said, "We still need the money." That's illegal. Once discharged, the debt does not exist in a legal sense. If a collector keeps contacting you, you can tell them, "This debt was discharged in bankruptcy. Contacting me is a violation of federal law." You made the hard choice to move forward once. Don't let anyone drag you backward into debts you no longer owe. Finally, let's talk about those tiny debts that cause enormous worry. Maybe a $74 utility bill from an old address, or a $200 medical copay that never got billed right. Collectors may send scary letters, but here's the reality. If the cost of suing you is higher than the balance, they usually won't bother. That doesn't mean the debt magically disappears, but it does mean you don't need to lose sleep over it. Especially if your income is from Social Security, pensions, or disability, which are often protected from garnishment anyway. So, when faced with one of these small claims, ask for proof in writing, check whether it's past the statute of limitations, and don't let a $100 mistake steal your peace of mind. Debt in retirement can feel like a shadow that follows you everywhere. A ringing phone, a threatening letter, the weight of guilt. It can make you feel small, powerless, or ashamed. But I want you to hear this clearly. You are not powerless. Not every debt is real, not every debt is collectible, and not every debt is yours to carry. I've met older adults who lost sleep for years over a bill that legally no longer existed. I've met widows who paid off debts that were never theirs because a collector preyed on their grief. And I've met people who carried guilt into their 70s for missing payments in their 40s, never realizing that time had already wiped those debts away. You deserve better than that. You deserve the kind of peace that comes from knowing the truth. Your dignity is worth more than a balance on a page. At this stage of life, what matters most isn't whether you settle every old account. It's whether you protect your health, your joy, and your peace of mind. You've already worked hard, survived loss, raised families, and contributed to your communities. You have nothing left to prove to a stranger on the other end of the phone. So if a collector comes knocking, pause, breathe, ask questions, stand your ground, and remember, sometimes the strongest answer you can give is a simple, steady no. Have you ever been pressured by a debt collector? Did they try to scare you into paying something you didn't actually owe? Share your story in the comments. You never know who you might help by speaking up. And if you found this video useful, give it a like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need relief from the same burden. You deserve peace in this chapter of life. And never forget, your worth has nothing to do with the debts someone says you owe.